All right, good afternoon. We'll go ahead and call this Downtown Design Review Board meeting to order for Thursday, June 12th, 2025. I'll request staff confirmation that the Kansas Open Meeting Act required notice has been properly provided.
Yes, I can confirm the packet was posted and the required notice was provided.
Thank you. Item 1.3, roll call.
Go ahead and take roll. Board Member Nelson. Board Member Freeland.
Here.
Board Member Herman.
Present.
Board Member Case.
Present.
Chair Manley.
Present.
We have 4 of the 5 appointed members of the DRB. And that is enough for a quorum, so we can go ahead and proceed with today's business.
Sounds good. Item 2.1, approval of minutes of the prior meeting, which was May 8th, 2025. Any questions or comments or a motion?
I move to approve the minutes. Second.
It has been moved and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. All right, motion passes. Moving on to new business, item 3.1.
All right, so we have one public hearing item today. That would be application CC 25-14, filed by Catherine Kitchen on behalf of Salina 2020, requesting approval of a certificate of compatibility to allow improvements to be made to the City Light Stage parking lot. These improvements include installing a pre-engineered open-air shelter structure, a fabric shading sail structure connecting the stage and the covered shelter, a new wrought iron fence and gate around the parking lot, restriping of the parking lot, new lights, new entrance arch, and signage. And I will be presenting the staff report today. So, the 100 block of North Santa Fe was formerly occupied by buildings from Iron Avenue north to Ash Street. In the early 1970s, the Salina Urban Renewal Agency began acquiring the buildings, and the buildings at the north end of the block were demolished in 1973. In February 2002, the Salina City Commission authorized the city manager and city attorney to negotiate a real estate exchange agreement with Sunflower Bank, which allowed city-owned surplus property at the northwest corner of Belmont Boulevard and Ohio Street for the Sunflower Bank owned parking lot at the southwest corner of Santa Fe Avenue and Ash Street. The surplus city-owned parking lot is now part of the parking lot serving ComCare, and this parking lot is now owned and maintained by the city. The City of Salina Engineering Division submitted a certificate of compatibility application in the fall of 2021. The application and plans submitted to the Design Review Board proposed the removal of the Campbell Plaza stage and relocation to what would now be known as the City Light Stage at the location of this parking lot. Plans included an elevated concert stage and a storage building that was incorporated into the stage structure. The Design Review Board approved the relocation of the Campbell Plaza stage on October 14th, 2021. And since the relocation, the City Light Stage parking lot has become a location for special events, including Salina on Tap, the Salina Farm and Art Market, and the post-race event for the Crossroads Marathon. The City Planning Commission met on March of last year and considered a request from Leslie Bishop on behalf of Salina Downtown for approval of a special use permit to allow a weekly open-air market or farmers market to be located and operated in the parking lot. The board approved that request 7-0. And the Salina Farm and Art Market has operated from the City Light Stage parking lot for the last 2 years. Salina 2020, the master developer for downtown Salina, is proposing to make substantial and permanent improvements to the City Light Stage parking lot. The parking lot is located on the southwest corner of Santa Fe Avenue and Ash Street. The parking lot serves as the congregating area for events taking place on the stage, including the farmers market and other special events. We will cover the proposed improvements in more detail as part of our staff analysis, but on page 4 and 5 you will find the design guidelines and the references they make to the proposed improvements, and we will go into those in more detail as part of our staff analysis. So starting on page 6 of your staff report, I'm going to attempt to go through each part of the project individually, and then if you have any questions, we can cover those at the end. But we'll start with the shelter structure. So the largest improvement being proposed as part of the project is the installation of 2 steel shelter structures. Structure A, which is located in the middle of the parking lot, is 115 foot by 26 foot, which is 2,996 square feet structure located in the middle of the parking lot. The structure will be 15.5 feet tall in the center and 9 feet tall at the eave of the structure. The structure will be constructed out of steel. The structure will be a green-blue color and will have a curved roof that is green in color on the exterior and a wood material on the inside of the roof. Under the roof of the structure will be 4 fan units, as well as a series of wall-mounted lights, including 18 8-foot-long rectangular lights and 24 cylindrical lights. Structure B is proposed to be a cantilever design structure that is 119 feet by 12 feet, or 1,428 square feet, located along the west portion of the parking lot adjacent to the alley. The structure is proposed to be similar in color and configuration to Structure A. Structure B will have 5 lights located on the underside of the structure. Following the packet being sent out, further conversation with the applicant and engineers ensued, and the applicant has indicated that with the cantilever structure being 12 feet in width, they are hopeful that the support pillars can be small enough to fit on the far that's the east side, the far west side. Thank you, Katie. Far west side of the parking lot, and that they will not encroach into the alleyway. The applicant has indicated that if they find the support structures do need to be modified, the cantilever nature of the structure may change, but the general design, lighting, and materials will remain the same. The applicant has also indicated that the support posts of the shelter structure will have brick and cast stone bases that further complement the entry portal, as well as the materials used on the City Light stage. So originally they were just going to be what was provided in your packet. It was just going to be the metal structure all the way down to the ground. Ms. Kitchen has since indicated, as you can see in the top left of your screen, that they will be brick and stone at the base of the structures. Next, we'll talk about the fabric shade cell structure. The second element of the proposed improvements is the installation of 2 overhead fabric shade sails to be located between Structure A and the City Light stage. The fabric shade sails are intended to shade the sun for performers on the stage and provide further location for people to congregate. The sails are 19 feet in height and will be a dark red and light brown color, respectively. The sails appear to be compatible in color and scale to the rest of the elements currently installed and proposed for the City Light stage. The sails would also provide another point of gathering for pedestrians using the parking lot and would appear to also provide an element of shade for those using the stage. In our staff report, we requested that the applicant provide more information on how the fabric sails will weather, and the applicant indicated that in order to preserve the fabric sails will be removed in the winter time and put back up during the spring, summer, and fall months. As part of this project, the applicant is also proposing to install a black wrought iron fence around the perimeter of the parking lot. The fence will have 2 decorative pedestrian gates on the north and east sides of the lot. And there will be a 30-foot or 24-foot with the pillars of the entry portal opening for a new proposed entry portal located over the existing curb cut on North Santa Fe. The fence appears to be similar in color to the fence used at the KU Nursing School across the street, and the fence will additionally help further enclose the space, which can help facilitate more intimate events and gatherings. Next, we can talk about the entry portal. So the applicant is proposing a new metal and masonry entry portal over the parking lot entry off of Santa Fe. The entry portal will have a masonry base on either side of the entryway with a black metal archway extending across the entry to the parking lot. The archway will have a space for a future entryway sign, which we'll talk about in our next section. But the proposed entry portal is 30 feet in length, and then if you subtract the size of the brick pillars, it would be 24 feet in length and then 18 feet tall. The masonry and metal materials, again, appear to be similar in character and design to that of the existing stage and that of the proposed base of the shelter structures. And the entry portal does not appear to interfere with entry or exit, as it extends well past the current curb cut. Currently, next we'll go to signage, and we'll stay on this graphic as well. But currently, the applicant has identified locations where future signage could be placed. The applicant has since provided information on the proposed signage. So the signage proposed includes, number 1, a sign above the entry portal. The sign would be located on the perforated panel above the entry into the parking lot. The sign would be 52 square feet in size, and the sign would identify the parking lot. The sign would not be illuminated and would be similar in character and design to the renderings that are shown in a part of your packet. So for further clarification, and Ms. Kitchen might get into this in more detail, but the possible naming has not been finalized yet, but the general intent and materiality and design of the signs has been finalized. And so the information I'm providing you is giving you an idea of the sign, and while the name may change, the general spirit of the signage is going to remain the same. So number 2, the applicant is proposing 2 circular panel signs to be located on structure A. The signs would be 13 square feet in size and would again be similar in material and design to the proposed renderings, and they would also not be illuminated. So as proposed, the total sign square footage would be 78 square feet, which is well under the 342 square feet allotted for this property. And if the board wishes to approve the signage as part of today's proposal, staff would feel comfortable with the condition that if there are any significant changes to the proposed signage, whether the material drastically changes or whether they were to be illuminated or the sign or the size were to change, that they could be brought back to this board at a later date. But it would be your discretion, and we feel comfortable with the details Ms. Kitchen provided that the signage could be approved as part of the application today.
Just to clarify, are those circular signs, one is at the south end facing south, the other one's at the north end facing Ash?
Correct. Yeah, they would be on the, if we can go back to they would be on either end of structure A. So you'd have, yes, as Dustin's pointing out on the screen. And the last thing we'll talk about is the parking lot configuration. So the existing configuration and layout of this city-owned parking lot provides 57 marked spaces As proposed, this will still be a multi-use public space with the parking lot use continuing when the lot and shade structure are not in use for special events. Due to the design and location of the center shade structure and the location of the support columns, the number of parking spaces in the center row of stalls will be reduced from 22 to 15 stalls, but these stalls will be covered parking spaces. The current plan is to maintain the parking stalls along the west edge of the lot with the loss of one space for the cantilever structure of Structure B. The plan is subject to change. However, the applicant has indicated that, again, with the smaller supports needed for a slightly smaller structure, that the hope is to retain all of the parking spaces to the west except for one space. So, in review of the project for compliance with the design guidelines, it appears to staff the following findings can be made to support approval of the proposed improvements to the citywide stage. The design and materials of the proposed shade structures are consistent with their intended seasonal use and will not negatively impact the character of the surrounding area. The proposed shade structures will be visibly compatible with the existing citywide stage. The proposed shade structures will be compatible with the buildings adjacent to the intersection of Santa Fe and Ash as to style, height, scale, materials, and setback. The design guidelines encourage the use of fences and walls to define the edges of parking lots. The proposed fencing and fence material is compatible with the perimeter fence used at KU Med and downtown sidewalk dining locations. And the principal function of the public parking lot will be maintained with only minimal loss of parking spaces as a result of the addition of the shade structures and parking lot configuration. And finally, the design guidelines for downtown Salina encourage that surface parking lots be designed to enhance the activity of the adjacent streetscape, and these proposed improvements to the citywide stage will help convert this parking lot into a more active downtown space. So it appears to staff the board would have the following options. You could approve the applicant's certificate of compatibility application upon finding that the proposed citywide stage parking lot improvement project will conform with the design guidelines for downtown Salina. You could approve the application subject to any conditions or revisions. You could approve certain elements of the relocation project and request that certain design elements be revised or redesigned and brought back to the board. You could postpone consideration of the application in order to receive additional information, or you could deny the application as presented upon making findings of fact for the reason of denial. And if following review of the application and any additional information, the board wishes to approve the citywide stage parking lot improvements, staff would recommend option 2, to recommend approval with the condition that if there are any significant changes to the design or location of the parking lot improvements proposed by Salina 2020 and approved by the design review board, these changes will be presented to the board's administrative staff to determine whether additional review by the design review board is required. And with that, staff's available for any questions, and Ms. Kitchen is here as well.
We did want to call attention to the fact that this is an advertised public hearing, so we send notice out to all owners of property within 200 feet of the request area to allow them to submit public comments to you. And in this case, we received written comments from the owner of the building at 146 North 7th, and we have put those at your places up there. So I wanted to at least bring your attention to that, and we can summarize some of those comments after we hear from the applicant.
All right. Any questions from the board of staff? I do not have any either. That means we'll invite the applicant up to the podium. Again, please state your name and address.
Catherine Kitchen with Salina 2020. Thank you for considering this application today. Just to speak kind of high level about how we got to this point, this project started actually a couple years ago with different kind of iterations that have happened. And when Salina 2020 kind of came in to take a bigger role in the work on it, one of the things that we were trying to kind of meet were multiple stakeholders and their needs. Some of those needs are maintain as many parking stalls as we possibly could, provide shade not only for the parking itself, but also for the performers on the stage. Also, keeping costs in mind for the total project budget. And then finally, something that didn't require a lot of annual maintenance. There was an early iteration that I think had more fabric sales, and there were early on, and those would not have had as much lasting power, would have required more maintenance by staff. In this current design, as proposed, I've spoken with the manager of facilities for the city to kind of go through what is needed. On the electrical side of things, we have designed the lighting, the fans, everything to be customizable, dimming capabilities, timing capabilities, and so that the city and or a user in the space can set up the space how they need it to work for them. Also on the sales, as indicated, it's a really pretty simple, just yesterday with the facilities, showed them the attachment process. It's a very simple kind of carabiner-like structure to come off and on. So for them, it would be he indicated that would be a very simple step for them to do. On the cantilever structure, as Gage indicated, that we right now, until we have a few more answers, we're hopeful that this will work. In a worst case scenario, we may or may not need some supports on the eastern part of that, which would require the loss of a couple more spaces. But we're hopeful that this kind of amended design will work with that piece. Related to some of the public comments that did come in, I just wanted to speak kind of candidly about a couple things. One of the comments was of having more fabric shade, and as indicated, we felt like that would put a lot of work on maintenance by staff, and we were trying to minimize that. The other part is that the public comment also said having more shade. If we add more shade, we lose more parking. And so this is trying to find a balance that works for all people involved. And then another question was on turn radius or access in the space. The structures themselves are the clearance is 9 feet, which would be like a traditional garage opening. A big RV or a big work truck is not going to work in this parking lot, but there are many other places in our downtown that those type of vehicles can and should park. Because this space is now going to be a much more multi-use space, we're trying to have something that fits for everyone. So that kind of answers some of the public comments, and I'm happy to answer any specific questions you might have.
I'll ask a question kind of unrelated. Who is paying for this project?
Sure. So the incentives, downtown incentives, are paying for this project. So revenues that have been produced through, for instance, the TIF funding, tax increment financing. So no one pulled out of their pockets to pay for this. It's all part of money that has been produced by the growth that's happening in downtown.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
One of my questions was the option for additional shade structures, and I think you've already answered that. Once you build it, how and you realize you do want more shade in a year or two. How disruptive is it to add it later, or are this? It appears that the sails aren't attached to the structure.
It is attached to the structure.
In the one spot.
Point,
Okay.
yes. And we had to have conversations about the structure, and the footings on that side, I believe, have been over scaled for the anticipation of being able to handle any wind pull or things that those sails. The other points of the that are near the stage and the north side of the parking lot are actually giant pillars that will be there, that they will be hooked to, that are standalone. So if down the road, if someone wanted to add more sails, they could, but I would say losing additional parking stalls.
Okay. I know you've been working on this for a while, but it may be worth looking if you can attach sails to the structure on one piece to if it's not too much change to beef up the footings everywhere to give you that option. If it gives you that option, I don't know if it does. It may not.
I'm not the architect and or engineer, so I couldn't answer that.
Well, I'm just trying. Like 2 years down the road, you wish you could have, and some of those things it'll have sailed at that point in time.
Yes, I hear you, and I will definitely ask that question.
Yep.
Is it correct, looking at the renderings, that there will be like movable shade structures in the form of the umbrellas overhead?
So
is that a possibility, I guess, for...
So all of the kind of the fun, extra colorful things was just the gentleman that we contracted to do the rendering, just showing what it could look like.
So it is a possibility to provide shade that's movable?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. I mean, that, if Salina Downtown wanted to invest in movable picnic benches or whatever that looked like, there's nothing that stops movable shade from entering the space.
I was just thinking that might be a good solution. I know for some of the shade concerns, and, obviously we don't want to take away parking, and I thank you for trying to consider that, because parking's at a premium downtown, and we know that. So, thank you.
Thank goodness.
Do you know how tall the fence is? Is it relatively?
Do you have that in the? I don't know if I printed.
It looks fairly low, like 3 feet maybe.
It would be. I mean, we are sourcing from the same vendor that provided fencing, like at the Yaya's patio.
Okay.
So it would be a very similar height to that, which I would say is probably 36 to 40 inches tall.
Okay.
Our sidewalk dining fences downtown are either 36 inches or 42 inches. Some of them are 42 inches tall,
Yeah.
3.5 feet.
Speaking on behalf of the Crossroads Marathon, I get both sides of the design of it, and the fence assists with defining a space, so I like that aspect of it, but it will be very restrictive when you've got 7 or 8 or 10,000 people downtown that are coming in and out of there. So you have some choke points. Not saying I would change. I mean, I do like the fence, and that's one event, so that's a personal side of things. So I don't know if I'd change anything, but if that will be a thing. How much restriction of people going in and out of there, because that will be.
I agree with you. And the other thing that I would say is that it's all landscaping beds there, and there has been issues with people walking across the landscape beds. So this will actually protect those by forcing people. There is a gate that we've added in the design on the near the stage where that sidewalk is, and then it will remain open all to the left of the entry gate. So if someone came in the 67401 patio, that whole length is an entrance and exit point, is what I would also point out.
Okay.
It also does prohibit the runaway child at the Farm and Art Market from heading onto Santa Fe, which I appreciate very much.
Any other questions or comments for the applicant? Thank you very much.
Dustin, could you go back to drawing A200 and just put that up on the screen?
It should be in the parking lot site plan with proposed pole locations.
So I think is it this one or the one with the next one, I think, Dustin?
Here we go. Yep. So
No, it's the one that has the pole locations on it, Dustin?
there we go.
Okay.
So on A200, this one here, you'll see there's a gate entry here along Ash Street, and then there would be a gate entry here on either side of the stage. And then, Katie, you indicated that there wouldn't be a fence here, correct? So then from this point south, there's going to be no.
Well, and the entire western edge of the parking lot will not be fenced, so as well. So that would be along that alley.
Okay.
Okay.
I have a question with the public comment section. Drainage and ice hazard mitigation, like that wouldn't be any part of this project.
I didn't address that because that is not related to my project.
Perfect. That I just wanted to make sure that yes, awesome.
Yeah, and I was going to comment on that the comment was that they urged the board to consider extending the French drain system. That would not be this board's purview or responsibility. Just for your benefit, farther to the south, there have been issues both with drainage and also in the wintertime. We get a lot of building runoff into the alley. The alleys aren't really designed to just convey water straight north to Ash. None of the water really reaches there. And so the conclusion was to try to create slit drains or a French drain system in the alley so the water that comes off buildings would then percolate down there, not flow down the alley. So I think they're saying that needs to be extended farther north behind the buildings that extend to the north, and that would be something that we would communicate to our Public Works Department, but it would not be involving this board or involving Salina 2020. That is a city alley and a city project. So.
All right, moving on to comments by interested citizens. Do we have anyone in the audience that would like to speak?
Good afternoon. I'm Leslie Bishop, Executive Director of Salina Downtown. I just want to thank this board and the City of Salina for sticking with this project and Salina 2020 for all of their thoughtfulness in this design. From a programming standpoint, that Salina Downtown brings programming downtown. We had 28 programs last year, and the numbers did not reflect what we could have had if there was shade in this parking lot. That asphalt is so warm that people can put their bag chairs and it will literally honestly sinks into the asphalt. So this will not only provide a lovely aesthetic, but it will be a place where it'll do what it's supposed to do. And the fencing, I really appreciate that fencing because, as Ms. Kitchens mentioned, kids, dogs, bikes trample that landscape. It will be very useful. And then when the Farm and Art Market, people cannot come into the market behind a vendor, and not just the Farm and Art Market. When we have a holiday market, anything, for the marathon, if you have anybody stand, with tents and things that they're selling, they can't come in the backside. One last thing, Salina Downtown hopes that once this is all up and we get it going, that we will be able to add, with approval of course, some hanging baskets on the shade structure when it's like when we have the baskets that we have downtown. To your point, Ms. Herman, about the movable shades, like we've talked about having some movable picnic tables that fold up and we can store away. So I'm just I mean, this is going to be a wonderful addition to downtown Salina. That intersection is incredibly busy. It's almost becoming an equal focal point, entry point as Iron and Santa Fe. And then when we finally get that digital messaging board on that stage, this will just be a really welcoming addition to downtown Salina and keep the momentum that we're already seeing. So thank you for your time.
I do have a quick question for you. What's the time frame once all the I's are dotted, T's are crossed, everything's approved? What's the time frame for getting this started?
Thank you, Leslie.
So we've been in front of the City Commission once to have actually approved funding. The June 23rd City Commission meeting will be the final agreement between Salina 2020 and the city. And then from that point, we plan to hit the ground on it. The structure itself is a prefabricated structure.
Oh, nice.
So doesn't require welding, but we have to know all the details of where every cut for every plug, everything on it, because then they fabricate, and then the contractor comes in and basically, like a giant erector set, puts it together. So that process, what I've been told is about 11 weeks for them to fabricate. And then, obviously we have to ship it here. And then I believe I think we have for the entire thing a predicted timeline of about 3 months. And that's now all of it. Some of the things that could happen, for instance, are we could prep site and have footings in, but not the structure here to put in. But some of that I won't know until we go through the permitting process and kind of have that fleshed out with the contractor.
Definitely the goal would be have it ready for next season.
Yes,
Awesome.
We would be, we're trying, I'm working with Ms. Bishop and others like the Crossroads Marathon to not disrupt things that are already happening. So some of that is we may go live and do some of the work and then kind of have to pull back so that some of these very important events can keep going and then come back in and finish. But some of that legwork is just been conversational at this point until we go through all these approvals.
I was just curious.
Yeah. So the goal would be is that by spring of next year, we have a finalized space.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Anyone online that would like to speak?
We do not have anybody except Mr. Nelson online.
Okay. Any questions for Mr. Nelson?
Nope, I'm good. Thank you.
All right.
And staff would just want to quickly, as you make a motion, if the board would wish to approve the signage here with the idea that if it changes, we can bring it back, we would ask that you indicate that in your motion. So approving the improvements, in addition, the signage as proposed, yeah.
And I do want to mention something, the public comment from a neighboring business. Asher Crandall sent in a very detailed, very organized comments for the public section. So I want to at least acknowledge those, the architectural compatibility, kind of more shade structures, which we discussed a little bit today, solar integrated canopies and refined steel work. I'll agree with the applicant that the steel structure is far minimal maintenance, so there's kind of some give and take on what you can and can't do from a maintenance perspective. The drainage and ice hazard is not on our radar. The partial coverage limitations, more comprehensive shade kind of discussed today. There's some give and take there. The rear access and vehicle maneuverability, I don't think that's on this design review board's radar, or it's more of a city function, I assume.
Yeah.
And then the vision alignment and regional president, I agree this can be and will be a focal point downtown. But I want to at least acknowledge the comments from Asher. So, any additional comments, questions from the board? Hearing none, I will entertain a motion.
I will move to approve option 2 with also the signage approval and the staff recommendation.
I second.
It is moved and seconded. Any additional comments? All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Thank you very much. Thank you to the Salina 2020 group. All right. Do we have any administrative items for today?
We do not have any administrative items to bring before you. We just have one item that we placed under other business.
Okay. We'll move on to item 4.1, a letter from Todd Welsh.
So attached in your packet is a letter signed by me addressed to Mr. Welsh, and we have had a number of sign reviews done by this board. And just by way of background, the city staff began working with the design review board and essentially running its meetings and doing the work of keeping the board operating in 2002. And we have had this set of design guidelines in place since 2008. We do have a number of signs downtown on older businesses that have what we would describe as fully illuminated cabinets. In other words, they may have a projecting sign or a wall sign. And by fully illuminated, we mean that the entire cabinet of the sign is illuminated from the inside. And so in January 2024, this board reviewed 2 signs, one for Salina Homes and one proposed for a separate 1858 coffee house projecting sign. And the sign that was submitted, the elevations that staff reviewed, led us to believe that it was going to be a dark brown or black or bronze sign with cutout letters that would be illuminated, and we attempted to clarify that at the meeting, that it wouldn't be where only the numbers, letters, and logo would be illuminated. The sign was ultimately installed, and the sign that was put up was essentially had the whole white sign face illuminated. We were contacted by a couple of business owners who had been through the design review process and staff had worked with to ensure that their sign was what we refer to as a backlit, or with only the letter and text illuminated, and they questioned why we had made them do one thing and approved a different sign here. And so in this case, the sign that was put up in our mind differed from what we thought we were presenting to the board and what we thought we had in front of us in the way of the sign permit application. And so we reached out to Mr. Welsh and gave him several options for perhaps modifying the sign or coming back before this board and asking this board to ratify the sign as currently designed and installed. And so he responded by indicating that he would like to come before us and discuss the issue, and then our discussion also turned to the fact that we as a staff need to do a better job of educating the board and educating business and property owners we're working with when we use a term like backlit sign, which has a lot of different meanings to different people and even different meanings to people who make signs for a living. So this is the sign that's up. We also put in the packet the sign elevation that you reviewed, and on January 25th, 2024, and a copy of the minutes from that meeting, and then just an example of a sign where we worked with the sign manufacturer and owner to have a sign where only the letters were illuminated, not the whole sign face. So we would want to give a chance for Mr. Welsh to address the board and acknowledge that we as a staff need to do a better job of having a meeting of the minds with board members and with business owners who appear before this board, so everybody knows and is on the same page as to what everyone thinks is being approved. So I'd be open to any questions about that. After we hear from Mr. Welsh, we're going to, for the benefit of the board, just run through some educational information or a piece that we have put together that we're going to try to include anytime we have a sign application that comes before the board, and also to make this information available to people who are wanting to install signs downtown as an informational handout. But we'll hear from any questions you have about the review of this sign, hear from Mr. Welsh, and then we'd like to present some information for you and have you give us feedback whether you think that's useful.
Before we ask Mr. Welsh to come up and speak on behalf of this project, can you provide a little context to the 2008 guidelines of why this board prohibits fully illuminated signs all over downtown?
Well, again, it's
or
a guide.
Discourages, I guess.
It's a guideline, and it's trying to achieve a certain look and also trying to avoid light glare when you're dealing with signs that are on an interstate or signs that are on South 9th Street where you have businesses that are hundreds of feet off the street, and signs might be 144 square feet, 150 square feet, then there is a greater need, and the businesses are much more spread out and they don't impact each other. But when you have row after row of businesses and row after row of signs, there is a preferred look in downtown business districts to try to eliminate the light spill, and there's many in the sign industry that think that a sign that has the letter and logo lit only is much more easily read than one. In some cases, if the entire sign cabinet's illuminated, the cabinet may be so bright that you can't actually see the letters. So that's the rationale behind it. It is a guideline that says within the downtown that is preferred. Salina 2020, the master developer downtown, on virtually every project they have done, they have pushed their tenants to have the backlit signs or signs that are where only the letters and numbers or logo is illuminated. And so since 2008, we have not been perfect. The board hasn't been perfectly consistent, but we have tried to urge and get business owners to be consistent in that regard. And I can drive down Santa Fe and identify signs that have the full cabinet illuminated, and a lot of those date from the 1990s or even 1980s. But the newer signs, the newer redevelopment, both the Prickly Pear and Jose Peppers that succeeded it, both of those had signs that were backlit with only the letters being illuminated. So it's a look that the downtown has tried to achieve. It's something that was important to Salina 2020 and their investments that they're making, so it's something that we've tried to be consistent with.
All right, that kind of answered a couple of my questions. Any other questions of staff for now? We may have some in a little bit. I'd invite Mr. Welsh to the podium. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Todd Welsh. Can give you many addresses, I guess. 131 South Santa Fe, 1858 Coffee House. Thank you for the opportunity to hear this. Many things have changed. For me, obviously, when you receive a letter, which I understand with talking to Mr. Andrew, why the letters are done. So there's a documentation that it was put out. How did it handle? So I received the letter and I was like, I think it's a good looking sign. And then I read the minutes, and I'm here to confess to you that I'm 100% guilty. You probably don't hear that a lot from there. So I wanted to tell you a little bit. I almost called to cancel the meeting, but then there's a couple of objectives I hope to achieve tonight. And one is, I feel like I'm, as a general contractor in downtown and all that, like I'm pretty smart or educated, but come to find out I'm not very smart or educated on a sign. And when I read back through the comments, I'm not sure exactly who asked it, but it was very well documented, and it was specifically asked, is this a backlit sign? In my mind, it is a backlit sign. The lights come from the back. So I didn't really think much about it as I was going through that. And an explanation to the sign that you approved, didn't give that much thought either. I had designed the first sign that was all black, and it had come to our attention by the sign guy, and by putting it up there, that sign is very hard to see during the daytime with it being so dark. And so they recommended going to a different sign, of which they sent to us. And I said, hey, I'm not a sign expert. I'm hiring a sign expert. If you say that that sign is very hard to see during the daytime, I'm going to believe you. So the square footage of the sign didn't change. Therefore, I didn't give it much thought. And again, I apologize. I was in the middle of trying to create a project in 4 months, and the sign was the least of my worries. So as I stand in front of you today, I'm not going to ask for a variance. I believe that the sign ordinance was put in place. I believe, and I understand that there are many people in the downtown area who have come before this board and have been denied based on a fully lit cabinet sign. And so therefore, I made a phone call to the sign company. It's going to cost me just under $1,000 to put it into compliance. I'm willing to do that. But the reason that I came in front of you today is I'm hoping that we can change the standard, and or if it is that important, is that through city staff, and I know this board changes, is it would help the public like me to be, okay, let's put up 3 very distinct signs, and you as the applicant tell me which one of those is going to, which one makes sense. As I spoke to the sign company, they said, hey, we do this all the time. He started mentioning halo signs and backlit signs and front lit signs and parameter signs. And I was like going, okay, how would anybody know? And so the reason I kept this appointment was to say that the reason we got here and how we got here, it wasn't that I was trying to do something that was different. I don't think that you think that. It's just how we got here. I didn't know the difference. And I would imagine the next person in front of you isn't going to know the difference either. Therefore, I believe that the city staff has given us some new policies that they're working on, in which that I think will help out the next person so they don't have to spend an extra $1,000 because we didn't know what was going on. So not your fault, not city staff's fault, just the misunderstanding of what is important in a sign downtown. So with that, we are asking for the okay to change the 2 sign panels using the exact same. I'd be happy to send this to you and make this a record. This is the newest draft and drawing from the sign company, which I have there, which is replacing the 2 panels of what's called a backlit. They're just going to put black. The sign will look exactly the same as that during the day. It will just only shine through 1858, the half circle, if that's what you want to call it, and the word coffee house, and the rest of it would be black. It's very interesting. I won't go down another road, but I mean, we can see the difference. But Jose Peppers, other than a little bit of the black on the top, it's funny. When I got the letter, I drove downtown. I'm like, well, there and that. I mean, it's so subtle. It's so subtle. But then when you understand it, it totally makes sense. And you can see the difference. But it is subtle from there. And if that's what the Salina Downtown chooses, that's what I will stick with. So I won't keep us any further. I just wanted to make that clarification so that we could make that point and let you know that I'd like to be in compliance with it and to show the record that no variance was given. And so somebody can't go back and say, well, geez, you gave a variance to Todd Welsh in 1858, therefore we'd like a variance. So I'd like to comply with the signage so that we can continue to have everybody else who comes in front of you from this point forward complies with what 2020's vision is in Salina Downtown. I'll answer any questions.
I don't have any questions, but I just want to say thank you for coming here and just saying that you want to make it right. I mean, because I know for us on the board, the aesthetics of downtown is important. And I can tell that it's important to you too. You just didn't know. Just like I didn't know about signage before I got on this board. I've learned so much.
Yeah.
So I understand. And I think that, yes, like the stuff that we're getting today and we're going to learn, I think it's going to be helpful in the future. So I really just appreciate you coming before us and presenting and
Thank you.
telling us everything.
If you could leave us a sample of your new sign, and we'll have that for the record. Okay.
So I did have a question on that new sign. I think you said it was going to be black, but that appears to be tan.
No, again, it's so funny. It's black behind the tan.
Oh, it's opaque, so it's not allowing light to come
There you go.
through.
There you go. If that's the fancy word we're going to use, then that's it.
We need to get all that clarified.
Yeah. So what has been told to me is the sign will look exactly how they do it. I have no idea, but you're saying the word's opaque.
It's magic.
But it looks exactly like that during the day. It will only light up as what was discussed on the very first part during the night.
And
it's almost so flip-flop that.
Yeah.
Yeah, flip-flop that.
And I think just based off the picture that they had up of, you could see the sign for 1858 and the sign for Jose Peppers, there's definitely a difference. You know, just in the brightness, it's like, it's harder to read because it's so bright. So I think this is going to be it's going to look better. It's going to fit better.
Yeah.
I'm excited for it.
Me
So
too,
I
I
think
like
it looks
it.
good.
Yeah, I mean, my first thought was just to unplug it because we don't do business at night. But then you have then you're kind of setting the standard of, do we want to have a lit sign unlit? That kind of is not a good deal. And then I thought I was being great by having basically a light. But then I looked out front and said, there's already a light there. I thought it was helping the city by lighting up the sidewalk, but I see there's already a light there. So I couldn't really go with that either. I tried every avenue. I know. I tried on there. So. Anyway, again, appreciate city staff for coming up with the illuminated sign downtown business improvement district. Be some education for you guys as well. And again, nothing against what was done. It was it's a learning process, and we're willing to get through it. So,
appreciate you, appreciate Salina Homes, appreciate everything you do for this community. 1858. We know you're trying. We know you had no malicious intent with this. I know you're a busy guy. So again, I echo the board's comments of appreciate you coming up here.
Clarifying
Absolutely.
your statements previously. Appreciate that, definitely.
if I may have 3 more minutes of time, with your permission.
Would you like me to
Start
a stopwatch?
Yeah, please. Yeah, if you could. Yeah.
You can break the timer out, but
Bring the timer out from underneath there.
Is it related to this project, or is it a separate project or a separate conversation?
It's a separate. Yeah, it's just as my time that's there. Maybe I'll come at a different time.
But let's finish. No, you can come right back up. Let's finish
Perfect.
this off first.
Love
Do we need a motion, or is the existing one?
No, this was designed to be a conversation, and there's not a motion because Mr. Welsh is not asking you to approve that sign that he has installed, and so there's not a reason for you to vote on that particular sign because he's indicated he's going to modify it.
perfect.
And so there's 2 ways we could do it. One thing is I understand you've handed this out to everyone, right?
Yeah.
So you would have an opportunity to study that, and then perhaps we could do that as a presentation at a future meeting, and you can give us any feedback on that. But we think if we have that we've learned in the sign world that having illustrations that go with words, because my letter to Mr. Welsh says sign manufacturers usually install a layer of opaque vinyl within the sign cabinet, and I could understand why he wouldn't have any idea what I was talking about, but we deal with that every day, so we don't always realize that where people can't do things just with vocabulary, you need illustrations that show pictures too.
And I would just, we don't need to go through the whole thing, but I would just like to quickly add, if you can go to the first slide, Dustin. So the first, Mr. Manley, you asked about the design guidelines specifically, and the design guidelines state that if internal illumination is used, a system that backlights sign text only is preferred. And so when Dean and I first had that conversation, we were discussing this specific term backlit and how that can create some confusion. And so we have provided, I think, 6 or 7 different examples of signage, and I could point to you, just in my last year here, I could point to you 6 or 7 that probably have different ways of being illuminated, but they ultimately achieved the same goal. And so as staff continues to work on our staff reports, we will work to use the language as referenced in this presentation, and hopefully that can help clear up any confusion that might exist when it's brought to the board. Because ultimately, to Mr. Welsh's point, we want to be as informational for the public, for the building owner, for the board, and for ourselves. And so we will work to use that language and better clarify. But we appreciate Mr. Welsh coming here today, and this was a helpful exercise for staff as well.
So it's a learning experience for us, just how to do better, and that we can't expect everybody to hear the word backlit and understand exactly what we're saying. So.
In this packet, I would encourage staff to be more clear on what's not allowed, because you can show me 100 versions of what is allowed, but be more clear on, like, don't do that. This is a clear example of what we don't allow. I know the last page, you know, that it shows a fully illuminated sign cabinet, but it doesn't say don't do this per se. Be a little more clear.
Got it. And I will
expand that a little bit. That would be helpful.
Yeah, we will. I'll work to further refine this. I wanted to bring it before you guys today, but I'll work to further refine it, and we'll bring it forward at another meeting as a short item just for you guys to look at.
Can it be Dean's last project?
It'll be somebody else's project.
Oh, there you go.
All right. Before we move on this one, any public comments? Anyone online like to speak on this one? Okay, we don't need a motion.
We do not need a motion because essentially Mr. Welsh has withdrawn his request. He just wanted the opportunity to address the board. So.
Okay. Cool. All right. I'll move on to item 5, which is public forum. So I'll wish anybody from the public that would like to speak.
Mr. Manley, thank you again for the time. I wanted to spend the rest of my time publicly acknowledging a servant of our community for 38 years working for the city. I don't want to steal your thunder if you were going to do this, but speaking of Mr. Dean Andrew, who's with us here today, who has been 38 years with the city of Salina. I can't tell you how many times he has worked night after night. You see his car down here on Sundays preparing packets, but not only that, as a developer, helping us to develop to make city a better understanding of clarification, pin sets, through the real estate careers for 38 years, identifying problems that would happen, setbacks. I mean, he's just done a phenomenal job. I'm not quite sure that his department, maybe they're starting to understand that how much a gap is going to be there. I'm not sure that we understand from a city standpoint of what everything that has been done from your board to the planning commission to the city commission of getting that done. So I couldn't leave here, and I couldn't let Dean Andrew exit on his last day without us publicly acknowledging him, putting that on record, and really saying thank you from the development committee, the community, and for me personally, I appreciate everything you've done for the community. So thank you.
Yep. Appreciate that.
Enjoy retirement, however long that lasts. Thank you.
Thank you. I will echo those comments from Mr. Welsh. I've appreciated working with Dean as an applicant on some of these projects, and then on this board as well. The wealth of knowledge I've appreciated. It's always facts. You're always consistent. It's typically black and white in a very gray world. So I appreciated the guidance and everything you have done for us in this community and for this board. So I will echo his comment. He said it a whole lot better than I did.
The only thing he didn't say was how mad all the realtors were when I went to the realtors' Christmas party and won the color TV that was the door prize. And the realtors couldn't believe that a non-realtor would win the color TV, and I almost had to leave the party. But I did get the TV.
And I just wanted to note to this board specifically, over the last year, Dean and I have collaborated a ton on staff reports and bringing projects forward to this board. And Dean has been incredible in his help and his knowledge and his guidance up until this very last meeting. And as we continue investing in our downtown, the impact he has had on downtown and how it looks now versus how it looked 10 years ago won't be forgotten. And as staff, we'll continue to bring things forward, hopefully in a manner that aims to provide the same level of detail and information that Dean provides. So,
Yes, and you are now our busiest board, and that's a good thing.
Yeah. We're looking to break a record, so
Yeah, well,
Bring it on.
we're here in first part of June, and we're on case number 14. So that's ahead of any of our other boards that review development. That means things are happening downtown.
Yep.
All right. Brings us to item number 6, adjournment. I will take a motion for adjournment.
I move we adjourn.
I will second.
I moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much.
Aye.
Thank you.